What is up, guys? I am post-workout in my own backyard. It's cold out here, so I'm going to try and make this relatively short. But I made a big fuss out of something we did in class today, and I thought I would come on and share it with all of you. This concept has come to my awareness, has kind of come into my sphere recently, and that is this concept of muscles that grip. The specific area where I've seen and now learned about the really problematic dysfunctional gripping is glute gripping, butt gripping, hip gripping, okay? And this refers to when someone, if you're picturing your femur heads in your pelvis, right, in your pelvis, this is when someone is so really clamped down in their hips that their femur heads are pushing forward in their hip sockets, and their glutes are just chronically firing. And they're most likely chronically firing because of a lack of stability in their deep intrinsic core. So their glutes, we see this sort of pattern and cycle in lots of areas in the body when a big picture, sort of a superficial, more prime mover muscle, that is a muscle that is positioned and is of a certain dimension and magnitude to create powerful motion. And there's really no better example than that, than the glutes in the body. They are your propulsive force, horsepower muscles. When they're coming online to do the job of deep muscles that are better size, shape, and location in the body to create stability at your spine, that is a finesse detail work that your glutes are just not capable of doing. They don't do it as well as the actually designed muscles, and when they are doing that job, they're not doing their actual propulsive horsepower function well, for balance, for energy production, for strength, etc. So one of the ways people can learn to butt grip is in all manner of hip thrust movement that is really going to the end of that activation of the glutes. So we go from an hip extension. Here I am, lying down. Let's just start showing rather than telling. All right, here I am in sort of, we could say, prime glute bridge, hip thrust, prep position. Now, so many people, me included, were taught originally to clench your butt and, hold a coin between it, whatever you want to say, and then squeeze up with that strong clench and really push through the full range of the motion. And you'll even see, I love Brett Contreras, but you'll see people really having to go all the way to their max. I'm not at my max, by the way. I really couldn't do that and also talk to you and from this position. To get to my max hip extension, you get the idea. When we do that, if we are not doing it with the mass glute muscles, sort of the big superficial muscles, and we are instead just cranking on the hip joint itself, the deep rotators and the piriformis and the muscles, what we can do is, rather than moving that hip through its range of motion, we begin to move the head of the femur in the hip socket. So rather than it being a nice, powerful, you can think like train gear locomotion here, just really getting the activation of the hamstrings, the whole posterior line is involved. The glutes are very well very optimized here in hip extension, and with that little bit, you can get a little bit of their sort of external rotation capacity at the top, depending on your knee and leg position, but you don't necessarily want to trade off more, that last bit of range of motion, for the potential stress at the joint. It is a trade-off. Are you leaving a few, degrees of range of motion of muscle fiber recruitment in that last couple degrees? Sure, you might be, but what's the cost-benefit analysis, right? How much does that hip thrust mean to you in that moment? Keep your hips centrated, keep your actual hip joint centrated in the acetabulum of my pelvis, right? Picturing it gliding through that range of motion. I don't need to also move it forward in the hip, right? It could be super dangerous for your hip health, not really optimal for your glute strengthening. It's going to emphasize the deep rotational contraction as opposed to the big global mass muscle fiber that you want to recruit, and it's just not worth it. So I'm really cueing that differently in my classes now. I hope that it helps you as you practice your glute bridges. If you've missed my other videos or I failed to post them, glute bridges and all their relatives, right? All the hip hinge family, but starting in an isolated, non-balance oriented, taking some of the stress on the knees stuff out of the equation by doing the bridge version first, is a must in everybody's life. We all need strong glutes. We all need strong back sides in general, the full hamstring, all the posterior chain complex. And my dog's like, yep, we've done enough. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. Happy bridging, happy, healthy, safe, hip friendly, spine supportive, core stabilizing glute bridging.